This interesting video was uploaded to YouTube in early 2008. The clip doesn't show any supposed ghosts or spirits, however, it is creepy. The video, originally recorded in the winter of 1990, sees 2-year-old Blair acting strange in the kitchen of the family home.
Yeah. Where's your elbow?
Up there.
Look here. That's your elbow.
Elbow? This is my elbow.
Where is...
Where's the ghost?
Ghost? He's gone.
Daddy, kill him?
Yeah. Look. Hey, don't rock. It'll break. I ain't afraid it'll break.
The unusual and somewhat retro video sees 2 women talking to a young 2-year-old girl. The 2 ladies are teaching her about the names of different body parts, when all of a sudden Blair swivels around on her high chair to peer into the darkness behind her, to then ask, "Where is the ghost? Did you kill him?" The creepy video blew up years ago after the original uploader and their viewers thought the young child may have been able to see something that they couldn't. There isn't any additional information on this short clip than that, however, this alone was enough to warrant the original poster uploading it, asking viewers for their opinion. Could this have been nothing more than a young child's imagination, or was there more to it?
Where is...
Where's the ghost?
Ghost? He's gone.
Daddy, kill him?
Yeah.
Sometime in the 1990s, a ghost documentary aired on BBC Two in the UK. The TV program, hosted by John Yates, saw him examine many people and their supposedly real ghost stories. One of which being a story told about a spirit of a young girl who was thought to be captured on camera one day after a fire broke out in a building in the small town of Wem. Take a look at the following and judge for yourself.
Our ghost trail moves to Wem, a small market town in North Shropshire, where in November 1995 the town hall was gutted by fire. As the local fire brigade fought to contain the blaze, photographer Tony O'Reilly took some dramatic still pictures of the burning building. He developed some the next day, but it was weeks later that he printed another roll, only to reveal what looked like a figure at the top of the town hall fire escape. When did you realise they weren't ordinary pictures?
Well, I took 2 cameras with me. The first camera I took all the films. The second camera, I took so many of them, and I had some pictures of the family as well. I didn't expose them until 30 months after, and that was when I found this image on the film.
What was your immediate reaction when you realised there was something strange on that?
Well, I knew there was something there that shouldn't be there. So what I did, I got in touch with the Shropshire Star. They went and interviewed me, took some pictures, and then we got the negatives and the picture sent off to, I think it's Kodak, and they had it analysed and they couldn't find nothing wrong with it.
Interest was further increased when local historians pointed out that Wem's previous town hall had also burnt down when, back in 1677, a young girl had been careless with a lighted candle.
It could be the ghost of Jane Cherm, who started the fire of Wem in 1677. And it's a good possibility, because the site of the fire of Wem back in 1677 was about 50 or 60 yards on the other side of the town hall.
As stated in the segment you've just watched, fire ravaged the town hall once before in 1677. The historical records show that the 1677 fire was caused by a young girl called Jane Cherm, who started the fire accidentally when she dropped a candle. Since that date, it has always been maintained that the town hall is haunted by the ghost of Jane Cherm. Question is, was this the apparition of Jane some 300 years later? Riding School. This next clip is an old one. The footage was recorded in the late 1980s at a farm in Kent, a county in southeastern England. A horse riding school was giving lessons one early Saturday morning. Janet and her daughter were getting their regular riding lessons. Martin, the father and husband, had taken his camera to record the experience. However, Martin might just have caught more than he bargained for.
Do ghosts only exist in the imagination? There's no doubt that evidence is easy to fake, but one incident at a riding school in Kent challenges even the staunchest skeptic. On a Saturday morning, Janet Emmett and her daughter are taking their regular riding lesson. The lesson is being filmed by Janet's husband, Martin. Later that night, she decides to watch it.
I was watching the video quite carefully, and at first I was watching myself, obviously, thinking how appalling I looked. Then I saw something quite strange.
Standing in the background is the figure of a man.
I knew that there couldn't have been anybody there. I was riding in the sand menage, literally a couple of metres away from where the figure appeared to be standing, and I knew there had been nobody there at the time.
Could this be a trick of light? On closer examination, the figure can be seen again. This time, it appears to have its back to the camera. Is this a ghost? Many have viewed this bizarre tape. No one has been able to explain it.
Could this in fact be the ghostly presence of a man standing there in the background? If not, how would a regular person standing that close not freak out any of the horses? A lot of previous commenters shared their opinions on this clip, saying that they think this is real evidence of ghosts. Although just as many have said that it's nothing more than the sun shining through the bushes in the background. Whatever or whoever this was, it almost looks as if it were a man dressed in 1800s clothing, similar to how George Washington and or Abraham Lincoln once dressed. What do you think about this video? Real ghost caught on camera, or is it something much easier to explain? World's Scariest. Atop Mount Lookout Park, the highest point in Alton, stands the McPike House. The grand mansion hasn't been occupied since the 1950s. Since that time, weather and vandals have caused extensive damage to the historic home. Once a proud addition to the town, the mansion continues to be in need of much repair. Although back in the late 1990s, a program called World's Scariest Ghosts caught on tape was produced, and in that TV show, it featured a short segment on the McPike House and its supposed haunting.
Alton, in Illinois, may look like a typical Midwestern city.
Spirits of the light, won't you come out tonight? Come out tonight, come out tonight. Spirits of the light, won't you come out tonight?
But it harbors a frightening secret. It's the site of what could be the most haunted house in North America. Welcome to the McPike Mansion. Built in 1869, the now abandoned house is shrouded in legends of violence and fear.
There was supposed to be a lady that was either drowned or murdered in the bathtub.
There's been folklore that somebody hung themselves there.
The woman that haunted it had been somebody that her husband had been killed in the Civil War.
Regardless of what is fact or fiction, residents and paranormal experts believe the house is haunted.
We think that there are at least 10 spirits here.
And they think the spirits have gathered in the basement. No sunlight penetrates these rooms, so the best way to film paranormal activity here is with an infrared camera.
Yeah, this is actual.
This is the wine cellar. This is where she gets the most activity.
Dr. Renee Horath and a group of fellow researchers descend into the basement with their video cameras rolling. What they experience, they'll never forget.
We were kind of chatting and just walking around, and suddenly we walked into a different room, and there was a very, very thick mist. It almost looked like a thick smoke.
Oh my God, I can see it moving right around in front of me.
Is this just a freak of nature or the physical manifestation of a ghost?
Oh my God, okay. I'm recording. I am on record. Oh boy, you can really see it now.
I could feel it, even through my clothing, I could feel it. Felt like feathers were brushing against my body.
Oh, big time, miss. Big time. Big time.
Renee and the other witnesses dismissed the theory that the mist is humidity or some other substance of this world.
Almost quit. Did you get it?
If it were mist, we figured it would leave condensation on our lenses of our cameras. You would feel it on your skin, on your clothes, but there was nothing like that. It felt electric.
Oh my gosh.
Even harder to explain is the way the mist moves around the basement, as if it has a will of its own.
Oh my God. Oh, and you know what? I can see it changing directions. Now, as witnesses on this room is clear when we left it. Right. It was totally clear when we left it just a few minutes ago.
Then, as quickly as it materialized, the mist vanishes.
Still mist?
A little bit.
Not hardly at all, by comparison.
What exactly did Renee and the others encounter down in the basement of the McPike mansion?
I think the mist is definitely a very huge entity. It has a lot of strength.
Whatever it is, it's clear that the mystery of this haunted house is far from being solved.
The McPike mansion has a history of paranormal occurrences. Numerous photos have been taken to add to its mystery. Balls of light go unexplained by professional photographers. Human-shaped outlines appear in the windows. Shadowy or glowing, they were not seen by human eyes until photos were developed. The McPike mansion is a house you've almost certainly never heard of, yet it could be one of the most haunted on the east coast of America. The following video is quite the retro one. It was uploaded by a YouTube channel called Best Tips back in November of 2019. The original poster suggests that a ghost of a woman can be seen in the background of the video while a family is walking through the woods or forest.
Det er et klip fra en film, som min far har optaget, da vi var for 40 år siden, da vi var ude på tur i skoven. Og det som vi sidder og ser, så pludselig så står der en skikkelse lidt inde i skoven. Og den person var der ikke, da vi gik tur. Så spørgsmålet er, hvordan er den dukket op? Er det et spøgelse?
The description of the original video states that the man talking about the tape in the clip you've just seen received the video when he was younger from his father, and that the video was recorded on a trip through a deserted forest. It's also worth mentioning that none of the family members remember the woman in the background because she simply was not there that day. So the question still remains, was this a ghost or something else easier to explain? Ettington Park Hotel is a 19th century country house built in 1858. The historic Grade 1 listing building has been described by many as one of England's most haunted buildings. In the 1990s, a show aired in the UK called Out of This World. In one particular episode, a woman named Carol Vorderman travelled out to the now hotel in hopes of capturing something spooky. Although she didn't see or record anything scary, the TV show did feature a couple of scary stories from previous visitors of the hotel.
That's why I went to stay at Ettington Park Hotel, judged the most haunted hotel in the country. The plan was for Chris to go ahead of me to find out the ghostly history of the place.
Here at Ettington Park Hotel, they've lost count of how many times this book has mysteriously fallen from its shelf. It's always to be found open at the very same page. A merry place, 'tis said, in days of yore, but something ails it now. The place is cursed.
Part of the duties at night were to relay the fires in the library bar and the front door that you can see across there. And I started to relay the fire, clean it out for the next morning, and I just had this feeling that somebody or something was over my shoulder watching me. And I thought, well, shall I have a look or shan't I? I was in 50-50, or shall I have a look, a bit worried. And I thought, well, might as well. So I looked around from the fireplace, and coming down the main staircase was this lady. And that was like a white mist, but there's a shape, definitely a shape of a person or a lady in this mist.
Robbie isn't the only one to claim to have seen the Grey Lady, as she's become known. Just a few weeks ago, a sighting was reported by the guest staying in this room, Mark Hellberg.
We weren't quite asleep, as I say, we were sleeping lightly, but it appeared, at one point, that we thought that there was light coming through the curtains, and I said to her I'd get up and would close them. I went over to the curtains, and instead of, where there was a slight crack, instead of closing them, I opened them for some reason, and at that point I saw, what I believe was a woman. But after this, I went back, got into bed, and I said to my girlfriend, I think I've seen a ghost. And I got the usual, and rolled over and carried on going to sleep. And then sometime later, when I noticed a light coming over from the door, I felt myself drawn towards the door. There was no noise, no sound whatsoever, just this light. And as I say, as I moved towards the door, opened it, and there in front of me I saw the woman who I'd seen previously over the other side of the corridor. I was scared stiff at this time by the expression on her face.
Like any house that stood for nearly 1,000 years, Ettington has seen its share of human tragedy. In Victorian times, it's said 2 young children drowned here in the River Stour, which runs through the grounds. Over the years, it's claimed they've made several ghostly reappearances, most recently to a woman staying in the aptly named Stour Suite. She complained of children running up and down outside her room during the night.
Nobody's ever succeeded in recording a ghost on a video camera, but there seems to have been such a lot of activity here recently that we thought, well, we'll give it a go. And to help out, we've asked along somebody who knows nothing of the history of this place.
Chris has given me a map of the house showing the reportedly most active areas, and that's obviously where I'm going to concentrate my efforts through the night. And if I find anything, hopefully I'll manage to record it on this. But of course, the rules are I have to do it by myself, so it's time for you to leave, chaps. Hello. It's, right. Just gone 1:30 in the morning, and just been woken up, and I'm off to hunt ghosts. Right, this is where we are at the top of the main staircase.
Although she doesn't know it, Carol is now going down the staircase where it's said the Grey Lady is most often seen. It's claimed she's the ghost of a maid who was pushed down the stairs by the lady of the house and broke her back.
I'd say I feel lonely. I'm still not really happy, I suppose, about being alone in a part of a great big old house. Right, I just come into what's called the long gallery, and I'm trying to find some light switches. A cold room, this. And I'm just sitting here, trying to get used to the noises.
Carol is now about to make her way down the back stairs. This will take her to some of the oldest parts of the hotel and the areas with the highest incidence of ghostly sightings. She's passing both Mark Hellberg's room and another suite, which is said to be haunted by a man who hanged himself from the rafters.
Very gothic. I must admit, I do get spooked pretty easily. And this is part of this experiment, I suppose, in that I don't know what I'm supposed to be looking for. I'm now heading into another room called Chapel Room. Ooh, it's very, very cold in here. Of all the rooms that I've visited, I would say that this one has the most, what you might call, atmosphere. It's a very cold room, and I was given by Chris like a temperature sensor. It's got a digital readout at the front, and temperature has been fluctuating here between about 19.5 degrees C and about 18.
Your feelings about that particular room are quite interesting, because 300 years ago it said that children affected by the plague were brought there in some kind of attempt to cure them. So it's got a very sad history to it.
Well, that's quite interesting, because of all the rooms, I didn't feel particularly uneasy there. I felt quite safe, but I wasn't truly comfortable, I have to say.
You filmed first in the middle of the night and then again at dawn. Were there any differences between those two sessions?
It's remarkable how much more comfortable you feel when the light has come up outside. And I would have been quite happy to sit there every dawn, to be perfectly honest, but then I like that time of day. But still, the chapel room, even though the light was then coming through the windows, still it felt quite uneasy. I still wouldn't like to spend a lot of time there. As Chris said, the chapel at Ettington Park was used for child victims of the plague, many of whom must have died there. The room was surprisingly cold, and although I didn't see a ghost, there was definitely a physical change happening that I couldn't explain.
Despite this show being filmed over 20 years ago, the neo-Gothic building still attracts ghost hunters from all around the world to this day, hoping that their overnight stay will yield something scary that they can take with them for years. What you're about to watch might just be the oldest piece of ghost footage you've ever seen. A vintage documentary by NBC Television featuring actress Margaret Rutherford, her husband, and Tom Corbett, author, clairvoyant, and ghost hunter. The retro television show saw the group of them go on a search for paranormal activity at 3 different locations across England, one of which being Longleat House, an English stately home built some 500 years ago. After 3 weeks of filming, the team were successful in capturing by time-lapse camera an unexplained light anomaly in an upper corridor at Longleat House.
The following day we saw the film that had been taken in the haunted corridor. There was something on it.
You see it now?
Yes, coming down the
Comes
wall.
through the door.
Quite right.
Through the door on the
It
left.
seems to go disappear at that door on the left.
You see?
Yes. Well, do you think that has a significance?
Well, frankly, I would have thought it was the beginning of a manifestation. Let me run it back for you again.
Yes, please.
Well, let's go back on that again.
There's no suggestion that it was a car light, which of course does spring to one's mind that a light from a car would travel.
Yes, but you can't because it's in the well at the back. And it's surrounded by 4 very high walls, so that's an impossibility. And of course we have the testimony of Jeff Smith, the electrician who spent the whole night there.
Yes.
As spooky as this was for such an old show, it was later discovered that a grandfather clock on the same corridor had coincidentally stopped working when the light anomaly had appeared. For this reason, it was always thought that the footage may not have been genuine. Perhaps this may not have been one of the earliest so-called ghost videos after all. What are your thoughts? Chrétien Point Plantation, a pre-Civil War 12-room red brick mansion located along the bayous of Louisiana, has been considered for some time now to be haunted. The estate was built by Mr. Chrétien in 1831 and at one point was a thriving 3,000-acre cotton plantation. Construction took 4 years and was completed in 1835. Chrétien and his wife Félicité moved in shortly afterwards. Unfortunately, Mr. Chrétien died from yellow fever about 4 years later in 1839. In the years that followed, Félicité became an extremely wealthy woman. Such wealth was a target for all sorts. The following video is a segment taken from a 20-year-old episode of Haunted Hotels, a program produced by the Travel Channel back in 2001. It explains why the building might just be one of the most haunted in the state of Louisiana.
Along the bayous of Louisiana, soft breezes sway the Spanish moss. The setting seems too serene for the violence that once shattered the peace at the plantation home at Chrétien Point. 2 hours west of New Orleans, Chrétien Point's 1831 plantation house is so evocative of the Old South that even Hollywood once looked to it for inspiration.
There was a photographer, and he came out here and he took pictures of Chrétien Point, the stairway particularly.
The photographer had heard of the plantation's dark story, for the stairway was the point of a violent killing long ago.
There was going to be a killing on the stairway in the movie, so he took pictures of the arched windows in the stairway, and indeed Hollywood copied the stairway from Chrétien Point for Tara's in the movie Gone with the Wind.
This Louisiana version of Tara once was home to its very own Scarlet.
Very much like in the movie Gone with the Wind, there was also a young woman, and she was a very independent soul. Her name was Félicité Chrétien. She was the first liberated woman of Louisiana. She rode her horse astride like a man, and she smoked cigars and she gambled.
Félicité's husband had died young, leaving his wife to cope alone.
And that meant Félicité had to take over running of the plantation, and she did quite well. She was quite a good businesswoman.
But running the farm was far from the only business at Chrétien Point. For years, the plantation had been financed in part by dealings with pirates.
They accumulated a lot of goods, and they would buy and sell here at what is now known as Chrétien Point. All of the stolen goods were sold here.
She did what she had to do to survive. She kept up the contraband dealings, the black market dealings, and that's how she got herself in with a little bit of the trouble that ended up happening over here.
Late one night, Félicité heard her door opening and realized instantly that dealing with pirates was a dangerous game.
She knew she was in trouble. She grabbed a handful of jewelry and a pistol, and she went and stood at the head of the stairs and waited. And sure enough, one of the pirates was on his way up the stairs.
She just waited for that perfect moment.
In the darkened staircase, Félicité needed to make her one bullet count.
She shook her jewelry in front of her and said, "Don't come any further." And Félicité really was saying, "Come a little bit closer, I can't see you well enough yet." So as he came up the stairs, not close enough to her, she pulled a pistol out, shot him in the head and killed him.
Aware that the other pirates might come in search of their comrade, Félicité dragged the body downstairs.
They took his body and put it in the cabinet under the stairs for the rest of the night, and he finished bleeding under there. Now the flooring under the stairs is almost totally black.
In the morning, the servants carried away the pirate's body, but some feel that his spirit remained behind.
So that is one of our ghosts. We call him Robert. And Robert we don't make fun of.
Robert has been known to go to great lengths to make sure that people take him seriously.
My first cousin came to dinner, and I was telling him about the ghosts, and he says, "You're crazy to believe in things like that." Pounded on the table. He said, "There's no such things as a ghost, and you know it." And the French doors of the dining room that were latched, they opened up all by themselves.
Just beyond the doors lies the closet that once served as the pirate's makeshift tomb.
So from then on, we talk about Robert, we mention that he's there, but we don't make fun of him.
But Chrétien Point's most active spirit seems to be Robert's old adversary, the lady of the house.
The house is absolutely a no-smoking zone, but at times you will smell cigar smoke in the house.
When we smell that cigar light up, we know it's Miss Felicite. None of us smoke cigars. And all of a sudden that just hits you out of nowhere, just the smell of cigar, strong. Of course, this was her house first, so we allowed her to smoke in the house.
At times, the objects in Felicité's home appear to be moved by unseen hands.
There was this rocking chair in the room from the 1800s, but nobody was sitting in the chair. And all of a sudden, that rocking chair started rocking. The next day, one of the docents was giving a tour, and she told the story of yesterday, the chair rocking. And her back was to the chair, and a gentleman on the tour said, "Well, look, it's rocking now." Nobody was in the chair, and there was the chair rocking. So she said, "Well, enough of that. Let's go out on the gallery." The doors to the gallery opened by themselves.
Can this be the work of Félicité still guarding her home?
Maybe she's out there looking for the pirates to come back again.
Félicité, former owner of Chrétien Point, still seems to live there to this day.
Sometimes they see Felicite looking through the windows. Sometimes she's sitting down in her parlor. We've had one of the tour guides walk in and she's sitting down in one of the wingback chairs. Miss Felicite wants you to know that this is her house. This is still her house.
Félicité still has her own idea of where things belong.
We have a card table that's upstairs, and I'll put the cards in a position, and I'll go back for a tour, and the cards are in a different place. Sometimes I try to make excuses. Maybe one of the maids came up here and moved the cards, or was cleaning, but that's Miss Felicite. I think Miss Felicite loves her cards in a specific place, nobody touches her cards.
As when she was alive, Miss Félicité is fiercely protective of her property.
They see Miss Felicite walking up and down on the galley, wondering, waiting, watching out maybe for anybody who's coming out to see her.
Most of all, Félicité seems to want to remind today's guests that she is still the mistress of her home.
She was a woman to be reckoned with.
The ghosts, the people that lived here before, they had a right to be here at one time. So as far as I'm concerned, they still have a right to be here.
The owners of Chrétien Point believe in their spirits. They also believe that one day they too may become permanent residents of the plantation.
The energy sources from people who have been here before are certainly still in this house. And I would assume, since we've been here a long time, I've owned this house for about 26 years now, I would imagine 100 years from now, the energy that my wife and I and our children have left here will certainly show itself to other people that are here later on. So that's okay.
Although the historic house is still there till this day, the supposedly real haunted plantation is no longer open to the public. Perhaps this place will have to live on in retro ghost stories just like the one you've seen here. Emma Simpson for BBC News did a story on a possible ghost sighting captured from Belgrave Hall in the UK back in 1999. The building is rumoured to be one of the most haunted houses in the country, with investigations from all kinds of paranormal experts, and it's even been featured on a TV show called Most Haunted. Watch this segment and tell me what you think.
Captured what appear to be two ghostly apparitions in the grounds of Belgrave Hall Museum. No one can explain what or who they are. Our correspondent Emma Simpson went to investigate.
A wet, dark Sunday morning and security cameras capture two mysterious figures. They only appear for a few seconds, followed by a swirling white mist on top of the wall.
The image appears for a second, upwards of 5 seconds. It's not walked into picture, it's not flown into picture, and it's not been blown into picture. It is a complete mystery. The image looks and appears to be a ghost.
But Belgrave Hall is well accustomed to ghostly goings-on. There have been supernatural sightings here before. A Victorian lady's been seen on the stairs, footsteps have been heard, and even the smells of old-fashioned cooking have apparently wafted through the building.
We have a lot of visitors who've always said, are there two of you in costume today? And we all know that there's only me.
The house was originally owned by a local MP, John Ellis. Many believe that one of his daughters is the ghost of Belgrave Hall.
Although it can't be proven that this is actually anything supernatural, viewers over the last 2 decades are convinced that this news piece might just show something from the other side. But just as the original re-uploader states, it's not shared online to fool anyone into being convinced that this is something paranormal, but merely to give people something to form an opinion on. In other words, this may just be nothing more than a leaf falling from a tree. As always, what do you think? Back in 2011, a show aired on TV in the UK called Great British Ghosts, hosted by a woman named Michaela Strawn. The program saw her travel across Britain exploring some of the most haunted locations. Each episode featured visits to 2 different haunted locations, with Strawn presenting the spooky stories surrounding pubs, homes, inns, and even castles. Throughout the episodes, Michaela was joined by the publicans and owners of various properties. In this upcoming segment, Michaela sees herself exploring Rye, a small town in East Sussex, more specifically an old building named the Mermaid Inn. The place is said to be haunted by many of the men who fought and died in and around the building. Judith Blinkow, the then owner of the inn, shares some stories and tales of paranormal activity from within the building.
We have many guests who stay purely hoping to see ghosts. And I always think it's the people who are coming not to expect ghosts that seem to see them, opposed to those just sitting in wait. And this is one of our most interesting rooms where there've been a lot of paranormal activity. Some lights on.
So what paranormal events have happened in this room?
We had a séance last year. There were 5 members of staff, all pretty sceptical, and we all literally sat around a round table and we looked over here, and the gentleman that was holding the séance said to us all, "My face will now change as I become the spirit of one of the long dead of this room." And all of us saw his face change. It sort of like grew on one side, and literally we all stood there. It was quite scary. And at one point in this corner, he said he was speaking to an actual spirit, and he told each one of us in turn to come over, and we put our arm through, and our arms actually disappeared into where his body in theory would be. And again, we all saw the same thing. I saw my arm disappear, they saw my arm disappear, and it was just really bizarre. I'm sure that the Mermaid Inn is haunted, having been here now for 28 years. And it's the same rooms that people see things in year after year after year. This area of the room's really interesting.
Was this a secret passageway?
Yes, it's actually marked as a fire exit, but all the fire exits now are the old secret passages.
And what would this have been used for?
This goes down to the back of the bar, and that is actually one of our rooms, room 16, which has got most of the ghostly stories. We can't actually go there in the moment, I'm afraid, because there's someone staying.
So what are the stories?
There are several, but the most common one that keeps cropping up is at the turn of the century, when we first bought the hotel, we got the story from the library that a couple were asleep in the bed, lady had woken up, seen two people fighting, woke her husband up, so they both saw the same story. And they had a sword fight. One gentleman killed the other, and the body disappeared through the wall, which would have come through here and down. Also, last year, we had a gentleman who left his camera running on slow all night, and at 2:15, you actually see at this corner of the room, it goes very dark, and you see a strange light dart straight down to the floor, and you could hear metal on metal. And the same week, someone took 3 photos on their digital camera, and the middle one shows a figure. And again, on the digital camera, it shows the time, and that was 2:15 as well, in the same room. With the sword fight in room 16, the body supposedly went through the secret passage, which in turn has a little set of stairs which goes down to the back of the bar. And in the good old days, the bar was actually on that particular corner. And one day we actually had a barman came to work, and all the bottles in front of him fell off the shelf. And the last thing we saw of him was his bow tie left on the side, and he left. We never saw him again.
A genuinely decent paranormal show with no fakery from just over a decade ago. However, because of copyright etc, I can't just play the entire thing, although I will leave a link below to the full video, and some of the other creepy episodes. Some of the haunted places Michaela investigated would turn even skeptics into believers. This last creepy video comes from a TV show that aired in 1996 called Haunting Australia. The small segment came from a longer episode which focused on stories about the paranormal, aliens, and other unexplained events. Although this upcoming story is quite slow to get going, what eventually is captured on camera shocked many, even the producers of the show and many viewers that saw it all those years ago.
The Rashid family is something of a miracle in itself. An American story of Lebanese immigrants settling in the New World, seeking and finding good fortune, and propagating so widely that its members are in every state. Life magazine, Look magazine, and many other journals have, through the years, reported on how the Rashids grew in number to 3,500 and produced their own family newspaper each month. Dr. Philip Rashid is one of 18 children born to a beautiful and extraordinary woman named Saida.
My mother was a tiny woman. She weighed 85 pounds and she's about 5 feet tall, but she had the aggressiveness and the intelligence. She couldn't read nor write a word of English, but she had an adding machine in her head, and she learned to speak Spanish, French, Arabic, and English. She educated herself. She didn't solve our problems for us, but what she did was show us how to cope with it. And that's where she came through.
The relationship between Philip and his mother is at the core of an epic saga of love, remorse, and redemption. Before reaching its final wondrous finale, it would take his life from wealth and flamboyance down into the deepest pits of depression.
I felt like I didn't see the trees, I didn't see the leaves on the trees, I didn't see the birds, I didn't see the flowers. I became in another world. I felt lost. I felt, I hated myself. I thought, what did you do? You killed your own mother that you felt that was the feeling I had.
From earliest childhood, Philip Rashid's admiration for Saida knew no bounds. He believed he had the perfect life with the perfect family. He was always an extremely religious man, once considered the priesthood. In the town where he settled, Fairfield, California, he was a respected oral surgeon, but he also became a sort of master of ceremonies for every social, charity, and cultural event he could involve himself with.
I was a show-off. I wanted to get on the stage and have everybody give me a standing ovation, which I deserved. I was a happy-go-lucky person.
And then came the day Philip Rashid would do something that would change the course of his life forever.
All of a sudden, my younger sister, there were three of us there, the oldest and youngest and myself, and she says, "Philip," she hollered for, "you better hurry, something's going on with Mom." And I ran in the room, and there she was struggling for air, and I dived right in and put the head back and started the routine treatment.
There was a moment there when Philip felt that his mother's life was in his hands alone.
I worked at it maybe for just kept at it thinking, you know, she's coming back, and no way.
Saida passed away while in his hands.
And at that moment, I felt I'm the guilty one. I thought maybe had I not taken her to the doctor, maybe if we didn't give her these pills, maybe this, maybe that. And I felt, well, it was my error, that I'm the cause of this.
Saida's doctor probably didn't help his spirits when he later explained a theory on heart massage.
He said, "I think maybe you don't feel bad because you didn't want to hurt your mother." And in giving the percussion, I was a little easy about it when I should have really, you know, but I just couldn't do that. I couldn't beat on her like that.
From that day, Philip Rashid would enter a world of bleak remorse. He would lose his flamboyance. Possessions no longer had their appeal. His practice lost its joy.
I was good for nothing. I burned out all day long. I'd see patients, and it'd work in my mind. It's funny, I can save this patient, and I couldn't do that for her. It would always come back to me.
In those bad years, Philip would sometimes look for signs, some signal from anywhere that would say his mother forgave him.
I drive down the highway and imagine I see the telephone pole look like a cross. There's the vision. Now, that's what she's telling me. That's it. Then I give it's a telephone pole. Well, that wasn't it.
And with the ever-deepening depression, Philip Rashid's health would begin to deteriorate. But one of his visits to his doctor would again be the next epic turning point of his life. It happened 4 years ago.
I was having some trouble in breathing, and the doctor felt I should have a complete chest x-ray of the lung.
As he sat in the reception area awaiting the results, Philip heard a small commotion among the nurses in the examining room.
The nurse that took the x-ray and the technician I was waiting in the reception room, and she's, "My God, look at this." And so I thought, my God, there must be cancer then, because of the way they're reacting. And the doctors ran in, and nurses and technicians, and they're all looking. And I thought, well, I've got to go in there. So I barged in, and I looked at it, and they says, "Take a look at this."
And there on the light board was the side x-ray of his chest. And as he got closer, Philip Rashid's heart began to pound.
First thing I looked at, I was looking for the pathology, because I know the cells and so forth. And I started looking around at it because I didn't think to look at the end here, because this is where the bulk of the material was. And I was trying to see, well, do I see something there? It looked like it could be connected to cancer. And they had said there's something strange about this, but they didn't tell me where it was. But when I moved into the outer portion, then I saw, and I looked, and I said, well, gee, here's something. And my God, that's my mother. That's her picture. That's her.
The sign. It had to be the sign. Look at this photo of Saida. Even the outline of her hair bud, her facial structure, the brow. Dr. Philip Rashid, an extremely intelligent, rational, and religious man, the significance of this moment shook him.
I asked to have a copy of the x-ray, and I left the clinic and got into my car, and I picked it up and held it again and looked at it. I had gone maybe half a block, and I began the tears rolling, and I stopped the car and I cried.
There are doubters, even among his own family, but all agree it is their mother's face.